So for this week we have Gabbi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Gabbi Berry is our Secretary-Treasurer for Ratio Christi for our Sam Houston Club. And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Gabbi, of course. I've been kind of attending Sam for 3 years. I've changed my major so many times. I don't know where I'm at or where I'm going to graduate. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like your average student. I'm a very, very strange person. I enjoy playing with my dog and watching anime in my pajamas.
But you've had really interesting academic interests, like engineering, graphic design.
I've changed back and forth just between a lot of STEM programs. I came in as an engineer, and I switched to history, and then philosophy, and then back to engineering, and then literature, and then back to engineering. And now I'm kind of in pharmaceuticals or bio is where I'm at right now. But that's probably going to change within another month. I'm not going to lie, so. I'm
waiting to see you come through chemistry here.
Oh, geez, no.
So chemistry's off. All right.
Nah,
so there's
physics
limits.
Before chemistry. I'd rather go back to physics.
Very good. So I know you because we've been in the club together, but tell everybody sort of your background. You were born in Houston, right? And raised in just real close by. Oh, no, that's not right.
Oh, absolutely. Not even remotely close. I was born and raised, my father's in the military. He's a Marine, simplified. And pretty much from a young age, I was with him most of my life, and he was stationed in South Korea. So I grew up in South Korea. I grew up speaking the language, being part of the culture. As far as if anyone were to ask me nationally, I would just identify as a Korean American. Just how I grew up. That's my belief on the whole issue. But being over there in the 90s, you know, as a tall, curly hair black person, it was interesting. Like the way I grew up was definitely strange. But I think it gave me very unique perspective on life, and the people I'm able to reach is very widespread. Especially considering I still speak very fluent Korean. It's like, oh, I have a bit of a talent. I have a knack for something like this. And I grew up a Buddhist as well, just, of course, Asian. But my dad was very devout Buddhist, and I was born and raised the same way for about 12 years or so before I eventually started religion hopping and came to Christianity toward the end of all that.
Wow. That's fascinating. So, so it just goes to show you just don't judge a book by the cover, do you? I mean, you make so many wrong assumptions, and so I think it's fascinating. That, you know, you're fluent. You learned Korean so deeply, and that when you came back to the United States, it was difficult to learn English. You had shared with me earlier.
It was such an interesting transition because I grew up as a little kid speaking English with my father, but he told me something when I was younger. He was like, I don't want you to be an American living in Korea. I want you to be a Korean living in Korea. So he kind of kicked my butt a bit about it. Enrolled me in a lot of intensive learning classes. He let me go to a different type of school. I was able to really get a feel for where I was. And over the course of my life, before I moved back here, I pretty much, as far as I was concerned, was a Korean. I didn't identify any other way. Just who I was, a person, is how I grew up. But learning English was extremely difficult. I, for the most part, forgotten it.
Wow.
And coming back here, especially to the area that I moved back to when I got here. My best friend is here. We went to school together. The area that I moved back to, being a black person and not speaking a lick of English, the ridicule was pretty heavy. But yeah, that was difficult. English is such a strange language. So there's so much involved. Korean is such a simple language. We even have less letters in the alphabet, so it's just like, dang, this is a lot. But it took me a while. I figured it out slowly, surely.
So you mentioned something about religion hopping and sort of discovering Christianity a little later in life than many of the typical students that we run into that would identify as Christians. Can you give us a short version of that walk? What did you explore? So just walk us down that road a little bit. I mean, you don't have to go into 2 hours of detail.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I grew up 12 years. I was a very much devout Buddhist. I went to temple with my father all the time. Just the lifestyle I lived. Moved to America, and the very first guy I became interested in, he was Muslim. Okay. So I pursued that background for a little bit, just not for that reason, just to get his interest. And obviously when I realized he didn't like me back, I was like, oh, well, forget this. So then I was taking a class on world religions, and Hinduism was interesting to me. So I was like, oh, all these gods I can talk to for, like, there's a whole different one for everything. I talk to this one for my homework, this one for a nice shower, this one for, like, my good food, you know. It was so easy. It's like, okay, I like order, and this seems like very organized. Like, there's someone for everything I need to do in my life.
Oh, so you saw order in that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It was so weird. I saw, like, amongst all the thousands of God, I saw order.
Okay.
So it just was something that I was very drawn to for a while. And someone asked me a question one day. I was like, okay, so you're a Hindu. I was like, well, I'm practicing right now. And they said, okay, so all the gods have different power levels, correct? I'm like, correct. It's like, so what stops the stronger gods from destroying the weaker ones? And that's when I was like, okay, yeah, that didn't make sense. You're right. I gotta finish with this.
Yeah.
And I ended up also Taoism, I believe, for a while. I looked into that, and I looked at Judaism, and nothing ever connected right. And so for a good 2 years, I was just kind of up in the air, floating in the agnostic bubble.
Okay.
Before I came back down to Christianity. I know he's watching this. I met a teacher, a science teacher at my high school, and he pretty much was such a soft soul, someone so gentle with me, and he ran this Christian organization, and me not knowing what Jesus was about, I was like, okay, sure, I'll go. I went to a few meetings, and he was preaching the Bible, and it just spoke to my heart. Like, there's something to this that nothing else that I've tried is offering me. And as an engineering student, I've always been that way. I just have to know how things work before I'm willing to commit to it. And I told him this. He gave me this book, Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. And I read that book probably 3 times before I finally sat down and was like, okay, I believe this. It makes sense. Let's go ahead and pray that we receive Christ. Okay. And I received Christ in the library, like 6 months later, probably, when he gave me that book. And he
but you went through it 3 times.
I had to, because I read it through and I'm like, okay, this makes too much sense. I don't trust when things come too easily to you, you don't want to trust it.
Right. If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, so I had to read it a couple more times, and like I actually looked up. The thing is, I like how much he references all the professors he talked to and all the doctors and archaeologists he mentioned in the book. I was able to like Google them by name and research there to see how credible they were as people. So I really kind of like, okay, he said this person told him this, so look up this person, see how credible they are. Sure. It made it so easy for me to kind of go and fact check them, because that's just like my big thing. I like to make sure somebody comes correct with the facts for me. So once I did all that, like, okay, there's no way for me to really be able to repeat this any further. This is who Christ is, and this is what he did, and I have to accept him.
Mm-hmm. And that's really a powerful moment in the movie Case for Christ, and in his book too. He talks about, and this is a big plug for Lee Strobel's book, The Case for Christ, and the movie that just recently came out about a year and a half ago. Yeah. The interesting thing was he's trained as a journalist for the Chicago Tribune, so he knows how to investigate matters. And so he went in and investigated all of these experts on the Christian faith and asked them his toughest questions. And he had cover to do that because he's an investigative journalist. So he didn't have to commit to actually being curious. He was just talking to people as a reporter talks to people. And eventually he says that he became convinced that these events happened, that Jesus was who he said he was, but he hadn't quite dealt with what that meant. And so that's what we mean by becoming a Christian, if you will, is now dealing with what that meant. That story is that there is a problem with sin in all of our lives, and that Christ is the answer to that. That's what the story's about. It's not just the facts of the story, it's what it says about us and about God.
Yeah, that's one thing that after reading the book like the 3rd time through, I sat on it for 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, crap, this is real. Yeah. It just, the reality of it hit really hard, and I became so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. And in fact, I actually avoided talking to him for like 2 whole weeks. I was like, I can't look at him. He'll know I know something. And it's just like, it's something I couldn't even refute anymore. I was able to refute it by just reading the Bible. Like, well, who says this is true? But once I accepted it as truth, I couldn't ignore it. Okay. Like, I have to face this as a reality and follow suit to what it says I need to do, or turn my back on Jesus, which seemed like an impossible choice once you know he is real, you know? Yeah, right. So I just had no other options, and it made the most sense.
And I think that's what C.S. Lewis is talking about when he says he was a reluctant convert. You know, what does that mean? That means you've learned something, you now know something you can't unknow. And you got to deal with the consequences of what that means. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So now you're here at SAM. You've joined Ratio Christi. You're an officer in the organization. You're studying apologetics. But I mean, isn't it enough just to become a Christian and kind of get your fire insurance? And
no.
Right? You're good,
hard,
right?
No.
You're cool. You don't need to study anymore. What's going on? Why apologetic?
Well, just the fact that I've always had more of an engineering mindset. I've always been that one kid that takes apart things and puts it back together. Like, I have to know how things work. I can't be just content believing and having faith, which I know it might sound a little bit not very Christianly, but I just can't. I'm not a person who can, like, believe, okay, this sounds right, so, yeah, I'm going to go with that. Like, no, I have to know everything, as much as I can, about a subject matter. And I realized, especially early on in my faith, because he baptized me and then literally left across the world. His family sold their house and relocated within 2 weeks of me being baptized. Talk about God's timing in someone's life. But he did his job and left. But it opened up a lot of questions that I realized I committed to this faith, and there are things that I need to know about. And I have no idea how to find those on my own. So I messaged him a lot throughout Facebook.
So you stayed in contact with him electronically. So he was still your mentor? Yes,
absolutely. And he told me, every time I asked him a question, like, okay, well, I don't know how to answer that, but here's this book I think will help, or here's this podcast I think will help, or here's this video of this interview I think will help you out. And it was always super helpful to me. And I feel that as a Christian, it's not only something that we should want to do, but it should be our responsibility to know our crap.
Exactly.
Like, if someone comes up to you, a hard atheist comes to you and asks you something about the Bible, okay, well, when was Jesus born? When was this and that? How did this make sense? What's the science behind this? What's the history behind this? If you believe just on faith, you're not going to have an answer. And by not having an answer, you're only proving their point that we're stupid and we just kind of believe something that's nonsense, you know? I think it's reckless to be a Christian and not know anything about the faith at all, but just believe. While believing is great, I think we should all have some sort of intelligence and hold some sort of standard to what we should know about this and be able to prove to other people who ask us and question us why we believe it. So I think apologetics is the why of Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that's fantastic, because you're saying it's not just a personal belief that it sort of excludes reality. We're making a very bold claim that Christianity is reality. It actually is real. And that's when you get into this point of, well, why do you say that? How do you know that? Unpack that a little bit. That's so different than just having a little personal belief and living in a cocoon. Now, you mentioned books, podcasts, articles, and so on. So which, to recommend to folks, do you like books better, podcasts better, videos, and so on? What helped you the most?
I think what really kind of I'm definitely a book person. I've always been a reader, but I think what really made it click for me in the physical realm, outside of a book can easily take you into your own world, you know? But what made it click for me, like, outside of, this is not just me thinking as other people think, it was watching these, like, 2 to 3 hour long debates between hard atheists and hard apologists.
Oh, okay, so you like the debates.
I love watching debates, because it's always good to see someone who has high intelligence, all their facts together, debate something that you are very much for. And so you can see from their perspective, okay, what could somebody possibly come to me to argue about? It's good seeing that side of the fence, so you can be prepared for what somebody might tell you.
Exactly. I've benefited from that too as well. If you're just looking on a Facebook comment stream back and forth, it's sometimes there's really no meat there. But you go watch a debate between, there's hundreds of thousands on YouTube now. You can really get both sides well presented.
Yeah, they're long debates, but sometimes if you're really interested, you can sit down and watch it with a snack, and before you know it, the video's over. So
exactly. Yeah, that's right. I've benefited from podcasts the most, because when I'm driving, I go to the gym or something like that, I can put the earbuds in and sort of multiply my time. So it's been very helpful. Are there any things that you've run across that you just say, wow, I don't understand that yet? What are you chewing on right now?
I was talking about this last night with a good friend of mine. Oh, God. He is an atheist, and we have been going back and forth about this for probably like 2 to 3 months, honestly. Just because he's really busy and I'm busy, so slowly we kind of move our time. Okay, let's talk about this, and then a few weeks later, talk about this now. It's a constant ongoing thing. Last night, our big discussion was kind of like the harsh reality that is Christianity and what it means to not accept Christ. And he asked me last night, so you mean tell me that all those people who are who good people that are devout Muslims and devout Jews and devout Hindus, because they don't believe what you believe and they die, they're gonna go to hell. And now it's like, dang, it's like a grit teeth moment. I couldn't lie and say, well, I don't know, because I know the answer. It's so hard. I accept it in my mind, but not in my heart, that these people that are good people, because they don't accept the message of God, they're not going to go where you want them to. That's the issue. I still struggle with it in my heart because I love people so much, but it's like, that's just the reality. And it's hard, but it's true. God is just, so thing.
I know, it's tough to swallow. It
It
really
is absolutely tough to swallow.
And it's something that I think comfortable cultural Christianity hasn't really dealt with. I mean, we just kind of sort of out of sight, out of mind. And yet it's something that you really need to think about. What is one of the biggest motivations for evangelism and talking to people? It's this belief.
Save people.
Yeah. So it's a huge motivator, and it's a difficult thing.
It's so hard thing. Every time I think about it, it's like I want to cry. Talk to the person who, like, I see a piece of the Berlin Wall in the middle of the university campus and I burst into tears. I'm so sensitive about that stuff. So it's like having to accept that. It's like, thing that hurts.
Yes. And so there's a really good video of Penn Jillette. You might have seen this one before. He's talking about a fellow that came and gave him a little New Testament, and he was just sort of struck by this guy. He said, this guy's a good guy. He probably knows me. He probably knows that I'm not a believer, and yet he's worried about my soul. And he came and gave me this New Testament. He's a real nice guy. And he says, how much must you really dislike a person to believe that they're in mortal danger and to not say anything? He's like, if you see me in the middle of the street and a bus is coming towards me, don't you want to push me out of the way? Don't you want to holler? Or are you just going to go on your way? It's a very difficult situation to ponder, and so it's a very motivating factor.
It is. That's why my heart goes completely into ministry and missionary work. It's what I've devoted several summers to now, and starting up. I'm actually in talks of starting a ministry, and just that's what I'm choosing my entire life to, is saving people and helping them come to Christ and understand that this is real, and you need to accept that. It's something that you need to incorporate into your daily life. It's something that's going to help you in the long run, more than you honestly think it ever will.
So tell me something about these mission trips, because I know within Christian circles, people know what those are. But I mean, if someone doesn't have any idea what you're talking about, describe real briefly sort of what a mission trip is and what it's like to go on one.
Mission trips are pretty much where a group of people get together and they chip in and they pay all this money to fly anywhere international or domestic and be in a certain location for an allotted amount of time, doing complete ministry, going out every day, reaching out to people, maybe getting jobs in the area so you can evangelize to co-workers. It's just a very relational method of evangelism. And for me, at least, I do it every single summer, so it's about 2.5 months a year that I spend purely evangelizing and purely out spreading the gospel. I've only been domestic so far with it, but I plan to go international very soon.
Now, when you say evangelism, you're talking about relational evangelism, just getting to know people and being a Christian in their presence. There are people who, even in the United States, they don't have any, in their circle of friends or coworkers, they don't have any interaction with any Christians. No idea what your worldview is. So you're putting yourself in their area of experience. It's probably in direct contrast to what we've been seeing on the mall, which some would call that evangelism, where they're hollering and screaming. So that's not what you're talking about. You're not talking about going to some place and standing on a corner and screaming at people.
That's why I only actually participate in missions that are, more than 2 months long, 2.5, 3 months my entire summer, because I take advantage of something that's supposed to be so much more relational that it takes time to build that relationship. Like if I were to go get a job on a mission trip, which is what typically happens if you do the domestic trip, at that 2.5 months you're making a relationship with that coworker and you're slowly introducing them to the gospel and what you believe. You're not going to push it down their throats immediately and then go home after a week of interacting with them. Like that's why it takes such a long process. Mission trips are often months long.
And hopefully staying in contact with them, like your mentor did.
There's so many people that I still talk to from mission trips that I went on 2 and 3 years ago.
That's great.
It's incredible with how much you touch people's lives in a short amount of time that you really don't think about.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's open it up for comments or questions. So what are you guys thinking?
Okay,
there you go.
I have a question.
Sure.
There's like this really popular bumper sticker, the one that everybody knows. It's like coexist, and it has like all of those like little symbols on there, basically saying that like it doesn't really matter what you believe, sort of thing. As long as we just like be good to each other, then we should be fine, instead of like beating it down each other's throats, sort of thing. That's basically like the general message. So how do you feel about that?
Ooh, this is hard because I have my viewpoint on it is I'm very left and I'm very right at the same time. I agree with the message that we all need to get along better, and there'd be a lot less fighting if we all just coexisted. But at the same foot, it's like we were talking about if you care about somebody and care about their eternal life and what that means for them at the end, you don't want to coexist peacefully. Like, you want to stir waves. You want to make waves. You want to, like, stir the pot. You want to get them thinking. So while I'm going to be nice to that random Buddhist across the street from me that I live next door, at the same time, I'm going to want to pursue him in a relationship with Christ, because I know that's what's best for him in the end. Like, he may not know that. He may hate me for like, you know, coming at him all the time about it. But if he were to accept Christ, that's someone that I was able to help save their life, save their soul. So yeah, coexist, be nice, but also still try to be helpful. There's a way you can have a relationship with someone and respect what they believe, but also kind of guide them, like, hey, you know, I don't know about that. There's actually my roommate, she's a very hard atheist, and we coexist perfectly fine. We get along great. She's a great gal. I'm her bridesmaid. Her wedding's coming up. We get along perfectly. Nice. But it's every day when I go out to a meeting and I invite her somewhere, she's slowly becoming more interested in it, because I've been so nice to her and I've been so relational with her about it, that instead of being a hard atheist when I moved in, she has actually said she's more agnostic now. Like, she might believe, she's not completely sure. So you can coexist with someone and be happy and still, you know, have that change of heart with them and still build that bridge to talk about God and open your relationship about Christ. The whole point of coexisting is to not be pushy, like the people in the mall area. It's shade.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just to have that relationship and be sweet and kind. So coexist, but for a purpose, I guess, is what I believe.
Well, and the thing about the coexist sticker is it's aimed at Christians. It's meant to, you know, kind of put us down and make us out to be bigots. But the problem with that is that some of the religions that sticker symbolizes, by the definition of their religion, cannot coexist with other religions. For example, the C in the coexist is meant to represent Islam. They want to kill all the gays, they want to kill all the Jews, and they want to kill all the Christians. That's not very coexistent, you know? So, I mean, in a perfect John Lennon world. But, yeah, no, I think what Gabby's saying is how we should look at it, at least, is, yeah, we can disagree, we can believe different things, but that doesn't mean we have to look at someone as any less of a person because of it.
There's also this idea in the coexist sticker movement that, like, what's good for you is good for you. You don't, like, we're not going to talk about it because I don't want to force my religion on you.
As long as you're happy.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I believe it's okay.
Good for you.
Well, I believe it's okay to murder people, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So then you get
Morality is not
But
relative.
I think, too, you see the coexist sticker, it's like, well, are you saying we're not? I mean, there's some people in the news that are actually killing other people, but mostly, you know, you've got a mosque here, you've got a synagogue there, you know.
Yeah.
Fire bombings are pretty rare. We're coexisting, you know.
Yeah, but
It doesn't
it's
mean
not
we're
about
agreeing on the truth, but we're coexisting. I think what they want to say instead of coexist is agree.
Yeah. Tolerance
That's different.
And
Don't tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they become
I would be
tandem
really
words.
careful trying to interpret what the person with that bumper sticker means.
Yeah.
And they may not mean what you think they mean.
That's what I asked. I said, do you think we don't coexist? You know, that's a legitimate question.
Right, and I'm not sure the coexist bumper sticker says we don't coexist.
Yeah.
It's just let's coexist.
Yeah.
And that would, you know, the First Amendment of our Constitution is
Yeah.
freedom of religion, so that's a coexistence statement.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you depend on how you interpret it, but as a political statement, it comes darn close to the First Amendment of the Constitution. Just why, you know, is there another message behind that? That's always the problem with Facebook.
Exactly.
Or a Facebook meme.
Yeah. And so, you know, you've seen Christian ministries put out, instead of the coexist bumper sticker, they have the same symbols and it spells contradict.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, like you said, it's a cutesy thing, but what do you mean by that is the question. You know?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. What does that mean? If we contradict each other, does that mean we pull out our, you know, put all our
We
boxing
each pull out
gloves?
our respective holy books and
Yeah,
beat
exactly.
each other over the head with it.
Good discussion. What else do we have?
Exactly.
I like what you said, Gabby, about ministry being relational. Love that. You could be more accurate about it. Really think about the way Jesus impacted people's lives on a relational level. I mean, the times he was walking with his disciples, he was the daily walk with them. Those, the people he healed, like the guy who was blind, he went and spat on some blood, picked it up, and opened his eyes. All right.
Right.
Now, I don't know how I would have felt about having a blood in my eye, but I mean, he was healed, so eventually like that. But just loving interactions with people. One thing I've learned being a youth pastor at this little church in Richards is that each person's soul, it doesn't matter if there's one kid or there's more than that, or one person. It's just investing in each person, because you never know what God can use and do with that one person. And never give up on somebody.
Right.
So following up on that, say again how long this period was where you were agnostic and then eventually you became a Christian, where you finally reached a place of saying, I identify as a Christian.
I was kind of floating in the air as agnostic for about 2 years. That was a long 2 years. It was such a depressing time in my life, and I was hearing the gospel for the first time in like 18 years. It was something so heavy to me. It was something.
So how long from hearing the gospel before you felt that you really endorsed it and received it?
I first heard the gospel my senior year of high school, which was around August, and I think I finally accepted Christ around February or March that next year. So roughly like 6-ish months is what it took me to kind of nail the coffin in on that one.
Wow.
So there's the relational aspect, and then there's just also, this is an adult, you process things. It takes a while to decide what you really believe and ask certain questions and reach some kind of satisfaction.
Yeah, I was extremely reluctant, and I'm so glad to have someone in my life that was patient with me, because I berated him. I'm not gonna lie, the first year I was extremely harsh to him.
No kidding.
Because of his pursuit of a relationship with Christ for me. And
yeah, so we were.
So he made no claims.
He made no claims. That's
never
amazing.
did.
He said hi to you. That was unusual.
He said hi. He offered me free breakfast, invited me to his little Christian club meeting. I went, and that day I went to the breakfast day. I remember he was reading John, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I thought he was
so this was
insane.
leading the group. He was reading John to the group, and they were discussing
Essentially,
that.
like a kind of he'll read a passage and then he'll open up the floor for discussion. That's how the
Okay.
meetings went. And I remember after he read it, I was like, "What are you talking about? That is the stupidest thing I think I ever
Interesting.
heard." Because I came in and he was talking about the story of walking on water.
Okay.
So I remember just kind of listening, like, what in the world are you saying to me? Some dude just pulled a matrix and walked on water to the boat? Like, what?
Yeah.
So it was, he never once said, "This is Christ, this is who he is, this is what it stands for, and I want you to believe this." I came to Christ by listening to him read the Bible and like investigating on my own.
That's fantastic. Wow. Any final comments? We're just about out of time.
Learn, love, be happy,
Yeah.
be informed, stay woke.
That's great. Fantastic. Thanks, Gabbi.